Salad or Dolly, threw a great party. We all drank Bacardi, it got kinda gnarly. We're light as a feather, we're tougher than leather. Together we're weirder together.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Ione motherfucking Sky.
The combination of, we took a nice trip to the country to Barrel. On the way back, skydivers, leeches at the same time.
Yeah, that was a wild ride back, wasn't it?
We drove back and we were looking at all these skydivers landing in a field, I guess, alongside the road. And then all of a sudden, my daughters in the back of the car were like, oh my God, oh my God. And I thought it was like an animal was in the car. And Goldie.
It was.
It was a leech animal.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize they have an
Coagulating agent?
Coagulating agent, the leeches, so that it just bleeds and bleeds and bleeds.
Now, as your maiden name is Leech, do
Yes.
you feel some affinity for these beasts of the wild?
Well, there is a theory that the leech is maybe means that there were doctors in my past. Not as impressive as a doctor today. Like back then, doctors were just, hair. They would cut your hair. They would perform an operation. Like
really?
It wasn't like fancy
Do a little
schmancy.
bloodletting?
Do a little bloodletting.
Your family line is deeply poetic, ethereal. Would I trust them to perform surgery on me? I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
But how was Mother's Day? Do you know?
I loved it. Trapping my children in a country house. It was my favorite. Except my older kid's boyfriend had a stomach ache, and
he's gonna. Should we really dive? Let's really dive into this.
It kept me up one night because it was an anxiety stomach ache, and I felt so bad for him.
Yeah. Well, you are a mother to all of us in a way.
It was a great weekend. It was like, we didn't fight. No one was fighting.
Yeah. We only fought last night when we were back.
Oh, yeah.
When I was watching Charlie XCX's Boiler Room
Which
thing
was
to show
great.
you
I
the
loved
cocaine
it.
scene, the famous scene where her husband gives her a little bump behind the booth. It's titled on YouTube, Charlie bends down to tie her laces during Boiler Room set, which is great. But and then you said, look, I'm oversaturated. Can we turn off the devices? And I closed everything. I sat there quietly, and then you just got on your phone.
Well, I had the dog on me, our puppy, and then I had lost touch of my phone for a long time. And then I realized I was sitting on it. So I stood up. And then once I saw the phone, I took a picture of the dog. And then I had it in my hand and I was like,
slippery slope.
Slippery slope.
But we should talk about the night before Barrel.
Oh my God.
We had
that was
amazing night.
insane.
So I got hired to DJ the Art Gallery of New South Wales, the opening night of the Archibald and Suleiman prizes. And it's like, I had no idea what to expect. I've never been to this event. So our plan was go and DJ this thing and then we'll drive out to Barrel right after. And I said to them at soundcheck, I was like, so is it going to be like a cocktail party? Or are people going to want to dance?
It sounded like it was a party for the employees. Like if you're at, like the Christmas employee party
Right.
where the people who work there get a little drunk, they get a little too drunk, they, hook up. I don't know what happens. So I was like, should I go? Should I not go? And then you said, just come. Thank God I came because it was like the most banging party. Is that a weird thing to say?
Yeah, it was like
it was crazy.
It was amazing. I mean, that's the thing. I'm not.
And it was you were really, but it's your personality.
It's certainly not my DJ skills, but I played the right songs every time, and it was bananas. And it was one of those ones like you see with everybody up on the booth, shaking the booth behind me.
Yeah.
And I had to like lock in and just focus on the songs because again, this is not my profession. I have to really concentrate when I'm doing what I'm doing. So people are up next to me. And then at the very last song, I'm playing All Night Long, Lionel Richie. I turn to my right and left and there's it seemed like girls in their 20s, two girls with Down syndrome, one on either side of me pretending to DJ. And I was like, come on, get over to this one and you can actually do it. And it was like a dream. It was amazing.
I know. It was really good.
It was really fun.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I love All Night Long. My brother's, in fact, in the music video.
That's true. How did he end up in the video for that?
But the songs weren't just like like 80s songs just so that the audience understand.
I play hits, but I play good hits.
Yeah,
like
all over the map hits.
Yeah, it's like a populist set, but it's
Yeah.
only good quality. And I think that's like
It was it was the whole building was shaking. It was like
Yeah.
everyone was just in one unison.
Yeah, it was really
So
fun.
it was fun last night doing deep dives with DJ AM and all the people you were studying.
Well, it says so much of it is like this thing started as a bit of a joke, and now I'm getting to offered to do it more. And I realize I actually need to get some more skills to be able to even just to handle the pressures of unexpected situations that come up in, you know.
Are you going to get outfits like who's your friend that's the DJ?
Like Steve Aoki.
Yeah.
We were just seeing
How
what
did
different
you
people were
know?
doing.
Oh, you knew Steve Aoki from Beauty Bar.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is like same place Jason Stewart from How Long Gone. Like this is
Right.
this era, Kuenga and Hollywood in 2000 and it was like indie sleaze, like 2002 to 2005. Every night it was so fun, and it was just it was just all.
I
these,
only went once or twice because I had a little kid by then.
Yeah.
And I was like not going out so much.
Yeah.
And it was very understated and cool spot.
I did it for both of us. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm really excited about. We watched the trailer for this movie Friendship that's coming out.
Oh, right.
In I think next week in America. It's Tim Robinson. I think you can. I think you should leave, and you know, amazing sketch comic, and Paul Rudd, and it just looks. I haven't been excited by watching a trailer in so long. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm dying to see this movie.
I know 2 movies I'm excited to see is Friendship and then the documentary of the people who live in the apartment in the mall.
Dying to see that too. That
which
looked amazing.
Jesse Eisenberg
Yeah, he was a
produced.
producer on.
I'm also really excited about our guest.
Me too, but are we going to jump over the note you put in my notes that you wanted to talk about bullet bras?
Well, yes. So what do you think? I was going to also ask our guest.
Surely it's got to go further than that.
Well,
I have no thoughts about bullet bras.
So Kate, my older kid who's in her early 20s was like, what do you think about bullet bras? And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to wear them. Like for having 2 children, my boobs are good. It's like kind of amazing.
You're looking at me for validation. I will give you that validation.
I'm sort of like, should we? And then
So what is a bullet bra?
my
It's got
mom
a lift.
in the 1950s, women wore them, and they're crazy looking.
Ah.
Like they're crazy looking. But Pamela Anderson
Uh-huh.
wore one at the Met Gala, and I was like, Kate Netto again. She's always ahead of something. She's always like says something, and then the next day I look in the papers or whatever I look
Okay.
in online, and I'm like, so anyway.
So you're going to get a bullet bra.
Well, I kind of do. I want something. Especially now we're podcasting, and then
You're going to wear bullet bras on the pod.
maybe I might try it.
All right, we're going to put you on those cover sheets, and we're going to get some clicks. I'll tell you, it's the moneymaker is going to move south from the face. But I'm into that. Also, if anyone is on our mailing list, which you guys should all be, it's free and it's fun, and we send you 2 emails a week, one about the pod and one which is a pick of the week, and the one we just sent out about this documentary, The Remarkable Life of Ibelin. I don't want to talk about it too much because we're both going to start sobbing.
Yeah,
But
no, it's good.
Just see this
Yeah,
documentary.
it's
It's on
great.
Netflix, and it's so moving, and it's about how gaming culture was like a
Connecting
genuine,
people.
connective, and
And
real
there's a lot
sanctuary.
of sort of Norwegian accents. It's very cute.
yeah, really,
Not to
really good.
sound like I'm minimizing someone's whatever accent.
No,
but
I would say that the cuteness of the Norwegian accents is definitely one of the big takeaways from this. Yeah, absolutely. Well, our guest today is Lauren Meisner, who is the founder of a podcasting network based in Australia, but it's really got an international vision, and it's called Centennial World, and it's an award-winning independent Gen Z media. I'm going to say that one more time. It's an award-winning independent Gen Z media brand based in Sydney that exclusively covers internet culture, social media, and the creator economy. And it's a podcast we are both addicted to, and it's like a touchstone of us following what's going on in the online world. So we're just really excited to have Lauren with us.
yes.
Lauren Meisner, I'm going to begin with a hard-hitting question.
Okay.
The internet, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Okay. While there are many very bad things about the internet, I think that there has been more net positive in its existence. But I think the wrong people have had too much power when it comes to the internet, social media, and even like in the government.
Whoa, you actually had a proper answer for that question. I thought I was just being a cheeky bastard. Okay, so
It's my full-time job.
yeah. So you actually do feel that there's something kind of like inherently good about guiding people towards better content or helping them analyze it, or how do you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to consuming any type of content on the internet, we're in this weird place in time where, and I'm sure we've all experienced this, like no nuance exists, right? It's very black and white. And there's this kind of anti-intellectualism that's going on, especially with the rise of TikTok. So I think a huge mission that we have at Centennial World is helping people look at the content that they're creating or consuming critically and understanding, what is it that I'm seeing? Why does this person want me to see this? What do they get out of this blowing up? And looking at it from that kind of critical lens.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's probably why I connected with what you do, because there's like, our friend is this writer for the New Yorker, Naomi Fry. Have you ever read her stuff? Like she writes about the housewives and everything.
Yeah,
and Brad Trammell, like this. Like I like people that are sort of challenging us to actually think about content, because it is something that like the story we were just telling about getting like inadvertently sucked into scrolling when you don't even realize you're doing it. It is essentially like sort of this tactile unconscious experience, which I guess leaves you like super open to fighting with your husband and stuff.
Well, finding your podcast, Ben always he good, hips me to things or whatever and it was such good timing because I just moved to Sydney and it made me feel so happy that you live in Sydney and you're Canadian, but it felt like, an ex whatever Pat or whatever you want to call it, living here. And also I just love your podcast, but it was really good timing to find something that is like so interesting and comforting and all of that. And anyways, so that's really good. That was really good for me.
Like an international, like I think part of what's so, I mean, I listened to it first before realizing you were in Sydney. And I think I just, when I looked you up online, I was like, oh my God, so you ended up here through life and relationships and stuff, right?
Yeah, like I'm Canadian, obviously, and I went to uni in Canada, and then I just did my working holiday visa after, university, just for something new. I was 24, and 9 years later, almost 10 years later, I'm still here. So you just kind of stay, like once you've done like the first year, you're like, well, maybe I should just do a second year. So then you get your second visa, and then you're like, well, now I have a bit of a life here, and then you just, I don't know, for me at least, and a bunch of my friends who are expats, like that's just how it starts.
Do you think because the media is so much less geographically centralized now, like if you were someone who is interested in working in media and this was a decade or 2 decades ago, you might feel more like it was really important to be at a geographic center. Yes. I mean, Sydney is a geographic center, but I mean, relatively to, it's not New York or London.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. I think so. And I do feel like there are limitations for sure with having a media brand in Sydney. But I actually always say, I don't think I could have done Centennial in Toronto. I don't think it would have worked as well in Canada, because I think of it as like Canada is New Zealand to the US Canada is New Zealand to the US as, New Zealand is to Australia. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I do.
Like if you're going to have a big kind of, if you're going to
I'm not sure the analogy totally illustrated your point with the clarity you were looking for, but still.
No, I know what you mean, which is so silly because think of how many iconic people come from Canada, like musicians and comedians and
comedy.
I mean, and then the same with New Zealand, but they do get this, I guess if you're like slightly nicer or something, or like slightly less aggressive, you're going to be looked at as the like, you know, stepbrother or stepchild or whatever it is.
And it's just a smaller market. So I think to really make it, if you are growing a business in Canada, a lot of times you have to move to the US for, you know, at a certain point. So I think Centennial wouldn't have worked as well if I wasn't in Sydney, if I was trying to do this in Canada.
That's so wild. I just wanted to dig in. You said that there were limitations by being here. What are those? Because that's obviously stuff we talk about a lot too. Yeah.
I think like a lot of our audience is in the US. Like we have a really big international audience. I think YouTube's a huge part of that. And also like, honestly, this sounds kind of crazy, but because I have not an Australian accent, a lot of people don't realize that I'm in Australia. And so I know that this is something that like some of my friends who work in entertainment and media have encountered, where they'll be in situations and they're like, we want someone who has like an American sounding accent. So like, can you have so-and-so go do this? So I think that's more palatable to like, which is not okay and crazy to say, but I think it is more palatable to like a North American audience.
But that's working in your favor.
Yes.
But what were you saying? You said there were limitations.
But I think that's because now our audience is so global. Like we do have a big North American skew. And the budgets here are just so much smaller.
Yes.
Like it's just obviously a smaller market. So I think that's a huge part of it. I think if we had our audience size, but they were all Australian, like we'd be one of the biggest podcasts in Australia.
For sure.
But that's just not the reality.
Do you remember the first podcast that you got into?
Yes, actually, it was Teachers' Pets. And I know we were talking about true crime before and how it's unethical, and I agree. But it was Teachers' Pet because I was working in media. I was a beauty writer at Bauer. It's now Our Media. And all the girls, like all the beauty editors were talking about this podcast and how it was just like so good. And it was about the Northern Beaches, and some of the girls lived on the Northern Beaches. So that was the first podcast that I really like got into. And then I got into a lot of the pop culture podcasts, like some international, some here like Shameless, like those kinds of podcasts. Yeah.
And so when you started with the vision for it, was it always a network, or did you just start going, I want to do a podcast? Like, because a network is like, that's what separates you too, that you are, you know, you're very proudly like a founder of a company. You're not just a podcaster. And that's a big distinction.
Yeah. That was always not necessarily the network, but like being a media founder, like owning a media company was always the vision. So that was always like how we launched. So when I launched in December 2019, like we were very much a .com because my co-founder and I, we were both writers. Like, so we were both like beauty journalists at the time. And we would pitch stories about like whatever was happening on beauty YouTube at the time, being like, we need to write about this. If we're writing about like beauty, we need to cover the online beauty space, and being told like, no, we don't cover that kind of stuff. Like we don't cover creators. We don't cover like YouTube, whatever. And this was like 2018, 2019. So that was kind of the vision behind Centennial was, okay, well, we need to have a publisher that covers like internet culture. And at the time, the beauty space was the biggest corner of the internet. Well, like on quote unquote, like girl internet. So we launched as Centennial Beauty, and then we rebranded to Centennial World when just like TikTok popped off and like the concept of internet culture and the creator economy expanded so much. But we always launched as like a publication, and it was really hard to like let go of the .com. Like we still have it and we still publish on it a couple times a month, but we were like, I was writing news stories every single day.
And that was, you were like selling advertising on that, and that was the model.
And like we had our TikTok and we always had a podcast. It was just once a week.
Okay.
But it really wasn't like where advertisers, this is getting into like the business of
media.
But
I think that's interesting. For sure.
Like that was not where advertisers really cared about spending their money with us. I think if they were going to go to like an independent Gen Z publication, like they wanted to spend in interesting, creative ways. They didn't want like a banner ad on a website. You know, they can do that anywhere. So we found the campaigns that we were getting were a lot more creative. They were a lot more video focused, or they were like podcast focused. So we kind of redirected our energy towards like much more like video podcast focused, much more community based, again, because we would write stories and we would get like, we could literally have like 10 million users on our website every single month, and it did not make a difference to our bottom line at one point. Like it was actually wild. And we found part of that was because the people who were going on our website were like searching up, you know, the tea between like two creators, reading the story and clicking out. They weren't like fans of the brand. They didn't really know what Centennial World was. We weren't building like a community. So we really went all in on community-based publishing around 2022. And then that is when we started thinking like, okay, maybe we should kind of have a bit of like, we should go deeper into podcasting and like video. And then that didn't really come to fruition until the beginning of last year, 2024, when my co-founder exited. And then I was able to kind of be like, okay, now I really have to figure out what the fuck is going on. So like, where are we taking this?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. And does it the long-term vision of it, I noticed like in your blurb, it's not like you're not a podcast company, right? It's like it could, where do you picture it going? Like,
we're a digital media brand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're definitely going to keep expanding the podcast network. That's like a huge part of the vision. We do want to launch something in the US in terms of like having a presence there, because like I said, we have a big audience there. So getting advertisers there would be huge. And we have a lot of relationships with US brands, and we work with their Australian teams. And even when we do work with, like when we have meetings with the US side, they're like, well, you have to have like an entity here for us to spend with you, even though your audience, you could have a big audience in the US.
So you'd have access to more marketing spend from your sponsors if
so
you had an incorporated thing there.
Yeah.
You could still create the content from here.
Yeah.
But you'd have like a sales rep or someone doing,
exactly. Yeah. So that's a big goal as well. And just honestly going all in on video. Like we've seen a huge, when we moved over to Spotify, so we used to host through a different host, and then we moved over to Spotify when they started prioritizing video. And that's been like game changing for us. Like honestly, they've been such a champion for us, and like our stats have been so wild. So we're just going with it. We're just literally, I don't know. I don't really have a plan. Like I'm just like, this is like in general what I think.
And you don't have to get too into it if you don't want, but how did you I'm just so curious, how did you like finance things from the ground up? Like how did that all work?
We've bootstrapped. It's so funny because I did a presentation on the brand 2 weeks ago at this big like VC startup festival. And I've never been in like the investment world before. And I was so nervous. And honestly, my worst nightmare came true. I left the stage and a man came up to me and said, let me tell you how you could do it better next time. And it was so horrible. But anyways, aside from that, a lot of the other feedback I got was from people because they're in this world, right? And they're like, how have you bootstrapped this? Like, I can't believe you've bootstrapped, because this is like the VC world. It's a VC festival, right? So all of them typically would have venture capital or have some type of investment. And they couldn't believe that I've like built a company with no investment. So I thought that was just like so interesting. But really, like when you're producing digital media to start, like I think it's just not that expensive. I know that a lot of people think it is. And I think that's where a lot of the mainstream publishers like get it wrong, is they have such big like bloated teams creating like one morning show, and that's why we see so many redundancies, even in like publishing, like, magazines and stuff. There's just so many people. You don't actually need that many people.
But you're putting out anymore. Like several episodes. I mean, how many episodes? You've got your 4 minis, then there's the tech
deep dive. So we do, and then high stakes is 1. Yeah. So we have like 6 episodes that go up a week.
That's amazing.
But I don't know, like honestly, when we started, my co-founder and I, we just put in $5,000 each, and that was like a loan. Like we've paid ourselves back that loan since. And it was just deal to deal to deal, like literally just brick by brick by brick.
It's unreal. I love the, I don't know, one of the things as a fan of the pod, like I love how open you are and grateful you are with your sponsors when they come in.
Yeah.
Like but it's like you often don't hear that type of transparency, because there's a little bit like podcasters get like pretty snarky about their advertising.
Yeah.
And you could tell that they kind of like don't really want to be doing it. In a dream world, they wouldn't have advertisers.
For sure.
So they're like racing through ads or being kind of like underhanded with it. But you're always like, we have this new sponsor and we're so grateful, and it's helping us move forward, and it's like so real.
Yeah, because that's exactly
real.
Like we don't have investment. Like every single dollar goes back into the business. And that's what we always say to our sponsors. And it's so true. Like it's such a slog. It's literally so hard. But I'm also just I'm just not about the like fake it till you make it life. Like I'm so fine with being like, this is really hard and I'm trying really hard. Like I'm not afraid to show that I'm trying, And I think that's actually unusual in Australia.
It is, yeah. Well, it's unusual. That's unusual in Australia, but in America, it's unusual to be open about the vulnerability of the difficulty of being an entrepreneur or pursuing a dream. Like everyone, there's so much smoke and mirrors. It's like, especially in the influencing world, like everybody's acting like, they're making tons of money and all that. Yeah. So how do you figure out, what's your criteria figuring out like what is the actual beat? Like what stuff lands within your, because some of it, like there's sort of a light, it's quite light a lot of times, but then it does touch on when there's actual like scandals or some darker things. Like how do you figure out what's appropriate to?
Yeah, I think if it's ever going to be a little bit heavier, I won't report on like speculation until the person has addressed it, or unless there's like actual like evidence, right? But in terms of how we figure out the stories, people ask us this all the time, like, how do you find these stories? Honestly, like we've just trained, and I have like a small team, right? We've just trained our algorithms to like bring us. I know if I start scrolling on TikTok for 5 minutes, I'll find all the stories I need for Minnie in the day. Yeah. And my team will always like, even on a Saturday, they'll be like, oh my God, you should, talk about this on Monday for Minnie and stuff. Like we're just constantly looking. And my Annabelle, who's been on my team since she was an intern, and then she's since kind of like stayed with me for 4 years. So she's the head of editorial for us. And she has like a full running document that I can't even look at. Like I'm like the least organized person when it comes to this stuff, but she is very type A, which is good. Like that's what you need. And so she has like a full document that she references every single morning, that has like all these links and different, YouTube channels and publishers and stuff that kind of keep her up to date with like, we should check here or whatever. But honestly, you just have to train your algorithm.
Right.
And I try and keep it quite vast. Like I do try and cover topics that are like quote unquote boy internet. And when I use boy internet and girl internet, sometimes my audience gets mad at me for saying that. But it's actually like a reference to a very specific Substack that came out a few years ago where the journalist was talking about different corners of the internet and she was like gendering the internet like that. So I'm not necessarily like gendering the internet, but boy internet would be like, gaming, manosphere, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, what was the one you did a few weeks ago? I forget. It was specifically about boy internet. It was to do with, there was one gaming thing that came up. But that was the first time I'd heard you use that phrase. Never mind.
I don't know. We talk about so many stories every day.
Yeah.
But we just did a big deep dive on Friday on the manosphere, like an hour-long deep dive. So but a lot of it is just like having a chronically online team. Like that's the most important thing when we are looking for new people, aside from our sales team. If we're looking for new people who are going to help us with social, editorial, podcast, whatever, like we ask them questions about like who their favorite creators are, how they keep up with internet culture news, what's their favorite cancellation and why. Like we ask them like very online questions because that's super important to us.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Like how I feel like, we talked about this briefly at Ioni's book launch about how so much creator content has gone to the right.
Yeah.
And I think we feel some affinity in where our politics lie. But there is still a reevaluation happening on the left of the way we have eaten our own and cancelled I mean, there's a thing going on right now. I don't want to delve into it too much between Clementine Ford and Abby Chatfield. That's very sad, actually. But it's very indicative of the way like left-leaning creators just tear each other down. And I just wonder, like, you're watching these cancellations play out over and over again. Like, what is that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people online I just think it makes us feel better to, of course, like in general, watch people quote unquote fall. But I think when it comes to like these cancellations, a lot of it comes from the, I guess, desire to feel like morally superior. And even I can fall into that, of course. Like when I'm reporting on stories, I have to really sometimes check myself and think like, okay, why am I like trying to quote unquote like hold this person accountable? Like, do I actually care if they're held accountable, or am I just trying to feel better about myself? I think a lot of it comes down to that. And it's kind of, it's framed as like, oh, we're trying to hold them accountable. We're trying to get, an apology from them. But then when somebody does apologize and and to be fair, we don't actually see a lot of creators change. So I guess that's part of it too. But like if somebody is trying to show growth, a lot of times that is criticized as well. So I do think a lot of it comes from all of us trying to feel a little bit morally superior, but also you do want to understand like who you're following and supporting, like where they stand on certain issues. And you don't want to be following people who are problematic and who are doing things that are against your values. So I don't know. I see both sides, and that's because like I'm so in it, you know?
Yeah. Brad Trammell had an interesting theory that basically you have this overeducated, underemployed workforce on the left, which are people with these amazing college degrees that can't find a job. And there's a very deep internalized sense of personal disappointment with the rat race. And so naturally there develops this impulse to tear each other down also because
bitterness.
Yeah, people feel bitter, you know.
Yeah, there's something I notice like when you're sort of gossiping or you're reading people's downfalls, sometimes, not the holding people accountable, sometimes I feel like it's therapeutic or it helps you see sides to yourself and there's this sort of helpful side. And then a lot of it is feeling better. I mean, I notice for me personally, if you're, you know, gossiping or reading about someone's, you know, celebrities' love lives falling apart, like part of it is this sort of like cautionary tale or like, oh, that's interesting. I did that too, or I could do that. But then a lot of it is like, yeah, like, oh, well, our relationship's in a good place or whatever that is.
Yeah, I haven't sex trafficked anybody.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
I
mean, I'm just speaking for myself. I don't know about you guys. It's like,
yeah, I do love talking about the online thing, like with Vines. I remember when Vines started, that was so great because it was the opposite of sides. You'd have someone from the Midwest, totally different lifestyle than me from LA, doing the most, hilarious thing. And that side where there are no kind of, you don't know what religion they are. You can guess, maybe it's different to mine or whatever it is. But it's just like all these funny kind of things on Vines. And that's like a fun part of connecting, obviously, all of that
so
stuff.
I am shocked
What was
now.
Vine? I don't even remember.
It was an app.
It was just like an app.
What was
so
Vine?
proud
After just like waxing poetic about it, she's like, I loved
It's
it.
like, the days of Vine. Hang on, I'm just realizing I don't know what that was.
I just remember they put the compilations together and I feel like.
Well, they're all up on YouTube still. But I think I didn't realize pre-TikTok that I was actually quite snobby in terms of who I thought was funny. I think I thought that anyone who was funny or smart enough to say anything interesting would have a platform I would have heard of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's silly. It's just that,
or would be from New York or LA?
Yeah, well, do you know what I mean? That it's like, I guess just as someone, I started playing music when I was 14 and I got a record deal and I just thought like the idea of like, it was very humbling, appropriately humbling to realize like TikTok kind of really made me appreciate the brilliance of regular people. Like I now look at like the insights of regular people as being superior to a lot of the stuff that you're seeing.
Yeah, I saw this video, this was months ago, and it was a stay-at-home mom singing like opera in her kitchen. And the video went so viral because all the comments were like, it's so crazy that there are regular people around the world who are not doing anything with this talent and just have this talent. Like, and that's what TikTok has, like you said, like really shown us. It's so wild. Even the comment section, honestly, the comment sections are so funny. I'm like, how did your brain think of that comment?
I know.
I'm so impressed.
I know. Our kid, I don't know if my other one, but Goldie, our 15-year-old, when I see her looking at TikTok, she goes to the comments almost like first.
Yeah.
And they are so brilliant, some of them. I would never have thought of that.
It's Talmudic, in terms of like a religion. It's like the commentary.
Oh,
That's
right,
where
the
like that is
commentary.
where like in a way like the brilliance of human beings really shines through the way. And that's what all this stuff is. I mean, we're essentially all part of culture and commenting on culture. And it's joyous.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the way that like what is working online? If you see new creators coming in trying to get a platform, like what from your perspective as someone who is paying very close attention, what's working?
Okay, I think a couple things. The first, I think we're going to see a really big rise in intentional like fantasy storytelling. I think we are really starting to reach the end of like being not that we'll ever lose interest in like regular people, but the concept, like what TikTok did for us was really like revive that like quote unquote like authenticity, right? Because like Instagram was so curated at that point. Even YouTube, if you think about the biggest YouTubers, they were all filming in studios and stuff like that by that point. So what TikTok did was it brought us back to like those roots of like people in their bedrooms, and we love following like regular people. So I think we're going to slightly get exhausted by that. And I think we're entering the era of like very intentional fantasy storytelling, even with brands. Like I think brands are going to start like creating universes, you know, where they're telling us these like really elaborate stories. And we're aware that this is like a fantasy like moment, but it's like entertainment. I think we really lack like that kind of fictional like entertainment. So I think that's one thing that's really going to start to explode.
Wait, so what's an example of someone doing that now? Because I don't think I'm familiar with that content. Like, what does that look like? Is it someone's in costume?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I think, I guess it would just be somebody, like, for example, if you think about the Who the Fuck Did I Marry series, right? That was real. Like that was actually her life. But that's an example of like a quote unquote series that I can see. I mean, we've seen so many creators kind of put their own spin on, and some of them are real and some of them are not. And it's not that it's like satire. It's just like you're creating this like persona. It's almost like acting. Like you're creating this like persona, right? And this like storytelling.
So it's more like sketch oriented almost in a way.
Like kind of. I think it's more bringing users into a very like specific intentional universe. I wouldn't say it's sketch in the sense that it's not like, you know, I think it's going to be one central universe. I think creators will start curating for themselves with like what they're like one central character. And I think with brands, we'll absolutely see that as well. And I think that'll be easier for them to create. And then the other thing that I think that I think works really well is kind of going back to us being exhausted by the concept of like authenticity. I think a lot of times like authenticity and relatability get used interchangeably, and they're not really the same thing. If you think about how everybody has tried to be like so relatable, and that's kind of what people say is like the key, right? To like growing online is just like be relatable. Like, you know, people will kind of find you that way. And if you think about the trends that have really like popped off in the last couple of years, a lot of them are very unrelatable trends. Like a lot of them like clean girl, quiet luxury, that girl, like all those kinds of trends were very like aspirational. So I think there's very much this misunderstanding that like all people want online is relatable content. There is still absolutely a place for curated aspirational content. But I think what has been missing from both of those is the transparency. So I think that will be the biggest one. Is I think if I was going to like advise a creator or somebody who wanted to be a creator and they were like, how should I create my content? I would say, okay, you know, who are you? What's your lifestyle like? And then just talk about that and like, that is what like authenticity is. But everybody's trying to like curate authenticity. Everyone's trying to curate relatability and play it off as authenticity. It's really just being like transparent about like who you are, what you value, what your journey is, all of that kind of stuff. So I think transparency and like intentionally curated fictional universes.
Yeah, like the mom, there's this New York mom who moved to Paris, and it's like, this is what a supermarket in Paris is like. And she's being authentic, but it's also aspirational because it's like I get to see her shopping for her little kid and the cheese. And it's not too fancy, but it's also like French, you know, it's like very specific.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a character, but it's not exactly
it's like
a character.
Unrelatable to like 99%
but for
of the
me,
world.
I'm not like so I get to fantasize like, what would it be like if I lived in Paris and I had a little 3-year-old and we were living in this apartment?
Yeah, I'm seeing more content too that it's a little harder to tell if moments are organic or not.
Yeah.
You know, like because you sense that people are the need to perform and to get that response. Like, you know, it's not quite Nathan Fielder-esque, but there are people who are like clearly orchestrating situations. I don't know. I've loved the last few weeks, this whole I'm so hungry I could eat a.
Yeah.
That to me
That's
has
so
been
good.
like, I'm going to remember that as like a high point of my year.
Yeah.
Like that internet trend, me and my kid, we've laughed
crazy.
so much through
Yeah.
those. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I get a lot of
I don't know
joy
why
out
I
of it.
didn't. I got
You
it,
didn't
but
like
I
any
didn't.
of them,
I think
really.
it was fine. I didn't laugh my head off, but yeah.
Well, there's two things I wanted to ask you about. There's a Vice magazine article that came out this week about, they call it ChatGPT-induced psychosis.
Oh my God.
Have you heard about this?
No.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I just wanted to hear your thought on it. So there's a subreddit that's been popping off apparently called ChatGPT-induced psychosis. And it's basically one horrifying story after another. And each one details various ways that people's loved ones have slipped into like almost like conspiracy theory world,
Yeah.
but like conspiracy-laden fantasy lands where they think ChatGPT, they have a personal relationship.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh.
almost like a guru. Like it's like people like after their first ayahuasca ceremony, like throwing, rejigging their whole life based on this thing. And they think ChatGPT is giving them private insights or prophecies or something like that.
We did
it's almost
use
like
it-
a gateway to God.
We
type
did.
thing.
Oh, right. So that's like schizophrenia, sort of.
Yeah.
But
what's
we
something?
did use Chat GPT, which was really fun for reading tarot cards.
Oh my God.
It was
Have you done
kind
that?
of amazing.
No.
We
You
did like
will do
three
like,
tarot
I'm pulling
cards.
3 cards, past, present, and future. I got these, and then it gives you
And
a
it
reading
did a
of
little,
it. It's
I
like-
mean, I
That's
don't
cool.
live by a tarot card, but I do, once every 6 months we'll do it. And I love, it's just fun.
make your father proud. Yeah.
Yeah, my hippie dad proud.
But have
that
you
was
seen that?
pretty
Because I've
fun.
seen that on TikTok a bit too, like people talking about this type of like spiritual supposed ascension they're going through with
Yeah.
AI
Oh,
and
gosh.
stuff.
Well, we did an episode last year on like spiritual psychosis and how the algorithm can put you into spiritual psychosis. It wasn't related to ChatGPT, it was actually more related to TikTok. And it was based off of my own personal experience. I didn't go into spiritual psychosis, but I swear I could have. Like I was addicted to like tarot talk, to all of those readings. And it was because it was when my co-founder had first left and I was just going through like a very like confusing hard time. And I just didn't know like
They gotcha.
they
Yeah,
got me.
yeah.
No, they did. Like, and then I started getting these videos and I was like, oh my God. So I'd like save them. I'm not even kidding. All of my private videos are me using the sounds where they're like, use the sound even if it's private. And it's just me on the couch, like being like, money will come to me in like 10 days. Like, I'm not even kidding. So I'm not surprised
We've
at all.
all been there, for
Yeah.
believe me, yes.
Ours was at the Bodhi Tree New Age bookshop in LA, but a different generation.
different,
yeah.
But I'm not surprised at all that ChatGPT does that. Like when I talk to ChatGPT, I know you're not supposed to do this, but I'll be like, hey, queen. And then she'll be like, hey, sister, with like emojis and stuff. Or she'll be like, hey, girly pop with like the nail emoji. Like I totally see how that happens with ChatGPT. And I mean, I don't know if this is probably part of this article where they found that there was like some bug or something and ChatGPT was like being too nice to people.
Yeah.
Did you see that? And then
Yeah.
like I think it was Sam Altman came
It's
out.
too affirming. It's
Yes,
too
it's too
affirming.
affirming. Yeah. And he came out and was like, yeah, we recognize this is an issue. This was just like last week. It
Yeah.
actually probably was off the back of that article.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, we're going to like address this. Like, sorry,
What's wrong
basically.
with being too?
No, you basically tell the person, they say, what do you think of this idea? And ChatGPT's like,
Oh,
fantastic,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you're saying.
It could be any
got
idea.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
rewatch the movie Her. Do you remember?
Yeah, it's
like-
become more prescient, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But I think in TikTok, you see it a lot. There's a highly manipulative technique people use where they're like, if you've stumbled across this video, it's because, and it's such deep manipulation.
Totally.
And it really, you see, targets people who are in a vulnerable position
Yeah.
and are looking for a sign.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
I covered in Mini Scroll like a few weeks ago, there was some scam in the spiritual TikTok community where one of the biggest tarot card readers, they had like a copycat account or whatever. Somebody was catfishing them or not catfishing them. They were like copying them, ripping off their identity, and then were catfishing someone else, like some woman, and saying like, I'm this person, send me money for a private reading. And the woman sent them thousands of dollars. Obviously the private reading didn't happen. And then this woman's husband went after this tarot card reader on TikTok saying like, it's your fault. And this girl was 23 and she reads tarot cards on TikTok. And she was like, I can't control this. And she has this like grown man like threatening her. And it was just like this horrible situation. So anyways, I was reporting on that. And I was saying like that exact thing, this corner of the internet, I still love it. Like my likes are still filled with tarot card readings. But you know, you have to be aware when you're watching this content that it can be manipulative and it can kind of pull in vulnerable people. And I got like destroyed by people in the comments because a lot of people really love that corner of the internet.
It's like going to church and saying God is dead. It's like no one wants to hear that. But how much of your current success and the success of the pod and the network do you ascribe to those meditations you were doing with those sounds on TikTok? Okay.
Literally zero.
I know. I count of all the stuff we've done, major years of deep diving into spiritual stuff, but I do still love a tarot card now and then.
Yeah, I can't go past it. Have you heard this term? My stepdaughter, Goldie's big sister, taught me this term over the weekend called N-shitification or in-shitification. And it refers to the gradual decline in quality and user experience of online platforms over time. And what it's saying is that the decline is attributed to basically advertising, like the things that you first loved about something, it just gets worse and worse. Yeah. And there is actually very little incentive to make these things better once you've hooked people in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I found that sort of like a wild idea.
I think that when it comes to platform moderation, that's actually the biggest issue. It's kind of related to that. But, you know, when we talk about like how could you possibly moderate YouTube or TikTok? How can we make sure that we're keeping kids safe when they're scrolling or just people safe, like making sure that they're not going down pipelines and stuff like that. And moderation is like the biggest issue there. And it's because these platforms have become too big. They're too powerful and it would cost them way too much money to actually put proper moderation in place. And they probably, to be honest, don't even really know where to start. So until their hand is forced, why would they? So I kind of see it like that. There's no incentive for them to put that moderation in place unless there's like literally like legislation that's forcing them.
Yeah, that's what Mark Zuckerberg was saying. He was like, I'm not going to do it unless you make me do it.
Yeah.
We first need to rename that term.
Which term? In-shitification?
It's just so.
That's the major problem. Yeah. And what do you think about? I think as someone, you have a very unique perspective on Australian content creators. How do you see them fitting in or not fitting into the larger trends? And is there opportunity they're missing? I heard you talking about Australian film and you're like, there's obviously something that the wheels are turning in your mind.
Yeah, I actually think like Australian content creators and social media is like kind of having a global moment right now. I think it's popping off.
Oh, is this Kath Ebb's fault? It's
part of it. No, not their fault. But I think it's taking center stage a lot more globally than I have ever seen, at least since I've been doing
with the
this
James
job.
Charles, that whole situation. Isn't there an Aussie involved in that? I didn't follow that.
No, there is not. There's not an Aussie involved in that.
No Aussies in James Charles' bed.
But no, I mean, I think, part of it, I actually saw a shift when Trump got reelected again. Reelected. And TikTok was going to possibly go away for Americans. And I think that kind of opened everyone's eyes to, okay, who do we follow? What does internet culture mean without the US on these major platforms, right? So that's when I think other creators started kind of gaining a bit more momentum. And my audience loves when I talk about Australian creators or creators from like other countries. I think it's so interesting because a lot of them are American, as I said, and they're not really fed that type of content, but they like love hearing about it and understanding what's going on. I think that space is absolutely taking, I don't know, it's having a bit of a moment right now. But when I was at this festival that I was talking about, this one 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting with a producer who works in like documentary filmmaking. And she was saying one of the big reasons why she was at this festival is she's trying to get some money she works for a company, but they're trying to get some money to kind of build Australia a bit of like a film industry. And like, I'm not really well versed in like the film and television
we
industry.
have a film industry, but I respect the effort.
It's cool.
No, I get it.
I mean, people film here, man.
Yeah. And
but it needs more.
And she was saying like on a global level.
Yeah.
Like films will get passed or greenlit if they're like very Australiana.
Yes,
But otherwise,
yes.
like
That's
it's
true.
just not. And she's like, I just want to work on a film that's not like an Australian film. It's just
Right,
like a
like the
film
incentive is to make an Outback thing,
Yes.
not to make a Euphoria.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
And
which could
Australia is
be,
so versatile. Like
Yeah,
I've filmed, but on American productions here and Australian. But Mulholland Drive was in Melbourne, and like we were just in Barrel,
Not the movie, the location.
the location,
Yeah,
and
the
it
shooting,
looked like Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
And then we were in Barrel, and it looked like New England. And I don't know, it's very versatile place to
and
shoot.
and Australian storytelling is actually really, varied. It's not like the image that sometimes
Totally.
Americans have of Australian life, as if we're all,
In the
riding
outback.
kangaroos to
Yeah.
school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
what she was saying. So
Yeah.
I think I think there is a lot of opportunity and possibility in the next like few years
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
That's exciting. All right. Well, how do we best end with plugging? Like, what do people listen to? Where do they find you? All that kind of
Okay, you
thing.
can find our main podcast on the Infinite Scroll podcast feed. So Spotify, YouTube, Apple, anywhere you listen to podcasts, video podcasts as well. And you can follow me at Lauren Meisner _ on Instagram.
And can you say Centennial World the way you say it on
Okay.
there? It's just got that beautiful lilt to it.
Centennial World.
Yeah. we'll say it too. 1, 2, 3.
Centennial World. You'll be hooked.
Yeah. All right. See you later, beautiful babies. Thank you for tuning in.
Together we're weirder together.